Well, we move into December and towards the festive season in the EFL Championship, and today we are back to look at match week 19, which takes place over the first weekend in December. All 24 teams due to be in action across Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and today, as always, we're going to preview and predict what's going to happen in our final episode being recorded in this background, so a nice moment for me at least. For now though, before we go and look ahead to this weekend, we have to, as always, go and have a quick recap. And this week, it will be a quick recap because I've had a very good week and none of you have managed to beat me. And I'm a little bit gutted, to be honest, because it should have been an outright victory. In the 93rd minute of Derby Sheffield Wednesday on Sunday, I was celebrating 14 points. Sheffield Wednesday scored a late winner to put that down to 11. Perfect scores for Sheffield United's win on Friday night and the Oxford Millwall Championship's favourite scoreline, which delivered me another 3. Correct outcomes for Middlesbrough, Bristol City, Norwich and Burnley's wins, as well as the West Brom Preston draw, mean I get 11 points. Nobody beat me, but thanks to that late goal for Sheffield Wednesday, a few of you are level. 4 of you in total on 11 points with me. Bandit, Bobby, Peter and Nigel. 4 of the regulars level at the top. We're all on 11 points, inseparable up there. Let's go and move ahead to match week 19 though and see what we've got in store, because we start with a game that I think is going to be a little unpredictable on Friday night. It is Burnley versus Middlesbrough. Borough have had a really weird run because they've had 4 smashing wins in the last 5 games and then a frustrating 1-0 defeat at home. They beat Hull, managerless Hull pretty comfortably. Finn Azaz scored a cracking goal. He's really starting to come on now. And to be fair, Tommy Conway popped up with a couple as well. The strikers are starting to score and the scoreline didn't flatter them. Despite having less of the ball, they looked a real threat on the counter and it looked like they could have scored more on another day. For Burnley, another good story for them. It's now 4 wins in a row, 5 clean sheets in a row, and equally, they're just starting to look like they're going to score goals in games as well. 2 away as Stoke, thanks to the penalty from Brownhill late on, but still a really solid performance. They had loads of quality opportunities and probably on another day could have got 3 or 4 without being flattered. But I know they gave up a few chances to Stoke, but they were by far the better team and had by far the best chances. And as a result, deservedly get the win, which makes this a bit of an exciting battle at the top. It's 2nd v 5th. Burnley obviously don't concede goals, and at the moment, Borough can't stop scoring them. But we have seen Borough have those odd days. So as a result of that, I'm going to stick with Burnley in this one, and I'm going to go for a low-scoring game. They've only let in 6 all season. I mean, it's a remarkable record from 18 matches. And I'm going to go for them to extend that clean sheet run with a 1-0 victory at home to Borough. On to Saturday, and we start with an early kickoff that has become a bit of a Spygate derby, hasn't it, from recent years. It is Leeds United versus Derby County. Derby, of course, as I alluded to in that recap, sucker punched right at the end by Sheffield Wednesday. I almost got that perfect score, but just starting to lose those home games now is a bit of a worry. To concede the only 2 shots on target they faced, and to be honest, they did waste a few good opportunities. I think officially they had 3 clear-cut ones, but there were at times the aggressors in that game. They'll be a bit annoyed they didn't get something from it. It's the harsh reality of the Championship. It's a brutal league. As Leeds found out at Blackburn, not only were they defeated 1-0, Tyrese Dolan somehow escaped a red card, which didn't help Leeds' cause as well. And in the end, it was another one of those games where, yes, they had a lot of the ball on the road. Yes, they had a lot of the chances in the match. But again, just couldn't find a way to take chances. And it's becoming a bit of a hallmark of Leeds away form this season. A really important one for them to bounce back. But at home, you've got to say they've been flawless. 2-0 and 3-0 wins are the order of the day. I think Derby will come and set up not to be beat. They've not conceded bundles of goal this season. It is normally 1s and 2s. So as a result of that, I'm going to go for the simple home banker, Leeds United to win by 2-0. Another game in Yorkshire at Saturday lunchtime is Sheffield Wednesday versus Preston North End. We mentioned Wednesday as clinical as you can be. 2 shots on target, 2 goals, including that 94th minute winner away at Derby. And Danny Roll, as I've mentioned so many times, continues to do a really solid job there. And Sheffield Wednesday, it looks like will have no trouble with relegation this year, which is probably the nicest thing they could have asked for at the start, to just have a comfortable middling season. On the flip side of that, Preston North End are becoming draws galore. It's no win in 6, but it's 4 draws in 5, including a Championship's favourite scoreline at home to West Brom. To be fair, West Brom don't concede many, so to come back from 1-0 down is a good effort. And they were actually really decent in that game. There were periods where West Brom couldn't get out of their half. Preston were creating good chances. And in the end, they probably will have felt slightly to aggrieved not to have won it, but a really good performance regardless. Away from home, they do struggle to score at times. It does make this one a little hard to call. It was a 0-0 at Stoke. They lost 3-1 at Pompey. The away form's not been great recently. They're doing okay, but I don't think they win this one. I'm going for Sheffield Wednesday by 1-0. Well, after my incredibly low scoring start, let's see if we can pick things up with the final early kickoff on Saturday, which is Sunderland versus Stoke City. Sunderland, unfortunately, the run of draws and the unbeaten run over for them. They lost 1-0 as we predicted as Sheffield United. A bit of a bizarre game. The red cards at the end of the first half didn't help it. And Sunderland obviously were then left with a little bit of a stick or twist because they had the centre-half sent off and then the opposition centre-half sent off 5 minutes later, which maybe made it a little harder for them to decide whether to go or not. In the end, they did have a couple of chances and on another day could have drawn the game quite easily, but they were beaten late on. And it's not really a new thing, is it? They're starting to struggle in front of goal. Take out that Coventry game. I mean, even with it, 4 games out of the last 6 they've not scored. They're just signs that maybe against the top level opposition in the league, as we've seen recently with the West Broms and the Sheffield Uniteds, they're not quite there in terms of beating them and looking a goal threat. So this game is a very different one. Stoke City lost their unbeaten run, didn't score for the second game in a row. They were beaten pretty comfortably at home to Burnley. However, they had been on an unbeaten run before. Without being spectacular, they're plodding along quite nicely. Nasty Plaque just starting to get his style over there, as we saw against Burnley, where they gave up great opportunities, but they were trying to implement that playing style. So this game becomes quite tricky. I know Sunderland haven't won in a while, but they've had some tough games recently. Millwall away was difficult as well, and Coventry at home from 2-0 up, it was a poor result. I think they will hold on in this one. I'm going to go for Stoke to lose again. I'm going to go for Sunderland by 2-1. Let's move on to the other managerless side on Saturday at the time of recording. I'm recording this on Monday because we're moving house later this week. It's Cardiff City versus Watford. Cardiff, well, a 2-2 draw away at Coventry, and it could have been more. They were ahead for the most part in that second half, and while they didn't dominate the game by any stretch, they gave up the ball, they countered well. In the end, no Coventry's pressure told, and a late penalty just cost them the points. They'll be very pleased to score 2 though, haven't done that since Norwich 5 games prior. For Watford, scoring was the problem. At home to QPR, bit of a surprise result. I know it's 15 unbeaten at home now for Watford. We've talked about how brilliant they are. But they actually gave up a lot of good chances in that game. On another day, I think by the clear-cut chances stat, QPR should have won about 4-0 or 4-1. But they just couldn't hit the target. So, little concerns defensively for Watford. We mentioned it at times in recent weeks as well. Ultimately, they had their own chances to put the ball in the net, and generally, they were the aggressors in that game. So, got to be wary defensively, and on the road, they've not been great. I know against Plymouth, they only didn't win because Andre Gray produced 2 well-beaten finishes, but prior to that, they've not looked great away all season, bar that Sheffield Wednesday second half. So on this occasion, I think I'm going to sit on the fence because I've not got many occasions to go from this weekend. I'm going to get the Championship's favourite scoreline out, go for 1 goal apiece. Moving on to the other side that are managerless at the time of recording, it is Hull City versus Blackburn Rovers. A massive props to John Eustace, who got a 3rd win in a row for Blackburn. And against those top sides where they can just sit behind the ball, they do look a threat, don't they? We saw it against Borough. We've now seen it against Leeds. I know we mentioned that Tyree Stolen was perhaps a little fortunate with his challenge, but not much of the ball, relied on a penalty to score, and then just defended for their lives. And to be fair, while they were under pressure, they didn't give up brilliant chances too often. So, got to say that Blackburn are having a really solid season. I think most people expected them to be in the bottom third somewhere this year. So, to be in 8th place at the minute, to be already 13 points clear of the relegation zone, that is some effort from John Eustace with a game in hand. Whereas for Hull, the run of defeats continues. It's 5 in a row after being handsomely beaten at Borough. On another day, yes, they could have scored a couple, but they just give up so many chances. We mentioned this when Tim Walter came in the summer. It didn't change in 1 game under interim management, and the next appointment's going to be crucial because in the summer, they sacrificed results for style, and it hasn't worked. So now, what do they go for? Because you see a couple of the people who are among the favourites, they would be pragmatic managers at times, ones that are more likely to get results, but then Liam Rosenior got sacked for probably maximising the potential of the team, but not doing so in the most flamboyant way. So a really interesting appointment and week coming up for Hull. But for this game, I know Blackburn are really decent. away from home prior to last week, they had struggled a little. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go for a new manager bounce here. I'm going to presume that Hull have a manager in by this weekend, recording 5 days in advance, and I'm going to go for them to nick it. It's one of my hunches of the weekend. I've got nothing to base that on at all, with no substance. I'm going for Hull City to end their winless run with a 2-1 victory against high-flying Blackburn. That's bound to make me look stupid, isn't it? Into the second half and the first Luton home game after my move to Yorkshire. It is Luton Town versus Swansea City. Luton were, again, bemoaning ridiculous defensive decisions against Norwich. Got themselves back into the game at 2-2 early in the second half. And again, if you look at the stats for the match, aside from possession, it was a pretty even game. Clear-cut chances are level, the set pieces, the territory, the chances, but the goals they gave up, the second, third and fourth, all avoidable. And late on, Luton throw away more points on the road. A dreadful away record this season. Now the second worst Championship defensive record after Plymouth, who keep getting battered every week. But at home, Luton are doing okay. 2 1-0 wins against Hull and Cardiff, a 1-1 draw against West Brom, beat Watford convincingly and gave Sunderland a great game. And now they come up against a Swansea side who, up until recent weeks, hadn't been the biggest scorers in the Championship, but they've now put 7 in 3 games. They'll be really frustrated to have conceded 2 against Pompey. Obviously went down 2-0 in that game and will be happy in the end they got something out of it, but gave up opportunities on the break, really poor ones, and then dominated the game and didn't take their own. It was a frustrating day at the office for Swansea City. But in this game, I'm going to stick with the hunch because, look, Luton have been woeful on the road, but they keep winning 1-0 at home. And the Swansea haven't always been the biggest scorers this year, and now they've started conceding a few as well. I'm going to go for Luton to win again at home by 1-0, but I'm not confident about it. Let's move on to Millwall versus Coventry City at the Den. Millwall continued their run of 3 successive 1-1 draws with a draw at Oxford United. Again conceded late on, despite the fact they went in ahead just before the break. But it was a pretty even game. Millwall probably had another chance to win it, but overall I think a draw's a fair result. For Coventry City, a very worrying first game in charge, I would say, with Frank Lampard. Nicked a late draw to make it 2-2, but we can't judge him just yet. A lot more focus on possession. Did have more of the better chances in the game, but again, still looked a little vulnerable defensively, which has been the case with Coventry for some time. They've drawn 3 of their last 4 games 2-0 and conceded 2 in each of their last 5 Championship matches. So for this game, the 2 choices for me are 1-1 or 2-1. And based on the fact that Millwall have been so solid defensively in recent weeks, 3 clean sheets prior to the 3 1-1 draws, I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline again, 1 apiece at the Den. Let's move down to 2 sides that are surely now going to be in a relegation battle this year. It is Plymouth Argyle versus Oxford United. Plymouth, well, what a terrible week. 12 goals conceded in 3 matches, 10 in 2 away games. And Wayne Rooney basically repeated his post-match press conference. And you can only get away with that so many times. After 6 at Norwich, it was 4 at Bristol City. Was 0-0 at half-time. In the second half, just fell apart. And we mentioned it with Plymouth a couple of times on the road this year. They're a side that, a bit like my club Luton at the minute, when they concede 1, they look like then conceding 2, 3 and 4. Again, gave up over 20 shots. Got beaten very comfortably. But at home, they've been okay. They found a way, thanks to Andre Gray against Watford, to get a result, and they've picked up some big wins at home park. But Oxford United, they've been poor on the road. They did pick up a draw at home to Millwall with that late goal. They're just staying above the dotted line thanks to that positive start, but they've started conceding as well. 3 at Sheffield United, 6 at home to Borough, and away from home, they struggled to pick up wins. So this is going to be a really tricky game to call, but I just think, and I know I might be proven wrong, the Watford performance at home was really poor for Plymouth. The last 2, they've looked like they're gone defensively. So I'm going to go for a bit of a surprise here. I'm going to go for Oxford to nick an away win. I was going to stick on the fence with 1-1 or 2-2 again. I'm going to go for Oxford to win this by 2-1. Let's move even further down the table for the next one, as bottom side Portsmouth play Bristol City. Portsmouth, very frustrated at the weekend. Yes, they were second best against Swansea, but from 2-0 up, just couldn't hold on. And in the end, they could have lost the game quite comfortably. But as it is, again, throwing away leading positions, you're not going to get far in a Championship doing that. The third side concede 30 goals this season in the Championship, and they're coming up against a Bristol City side who, after 2 blanks in a row, have suddenly remembered how to score. 4-0 in the second half against a hapless Plymouth defence. You could argue Pompey's hasn't been great this year as well. I really don't know where to go with this one. Bristol City have become inconsistent again with the win, loss, win, loss, loss, win. The only thing they haven't done in a little while is draw. So given the fact that Portsmouth are picking up a little bit of form, only lost one of their last four, and that was unfortunate away at Plymouth. I'm going to stick for them to get something here. I don't think it'll be 3 points that they're craving. It will be the Championship's favourite scoreline. For the third and final time today, I'm going for one apiece. As the final game on Saturday is a big one in London. It's the other side in the relegation zone. QPR, who face Norwich at home. QPR drew 0-0 at Watford, a game in which they had a lot of opportunities, a lot of good opportunities to catch Watford out on the break and win it. They didn't take advantage of them. In the end, they held on for a 0-0. It could have been worse, but we've mentioned it pretty much every week since the start of the season. QPR just haven't got the goals in that team. And apart from that, they're a solid mid-table side. It's literally the only thing missing. It is a little run of 3 unbeaten now, as it is for their opponents, Norwich. They've scored 10 in their last 2 at home to the worst 2 defences in the Championship. QPR's is a little bit better. I'm not sure whether or not they can take advantage here. The only thing they've got as a positive, QPR, is that Norwich have conceded 11 in their last 6 matches. 2 in 5 of their last 6. Only Plymouth they didn't concede 2 against. So it does give them a chance to score here. It's whether you go for the low scoring or the high scoring. Norwich aren't the best on the road. QPR haven't been the best anywhere this year. But I'm going to go for them to get some goals here. I don't think they're going to win the game. I'm going to go for a thrilling draw. 2 goals apiece in this one. And the final game, again, sure to be a cagey and low scoring one on Sunday, is West Bromwich Albion versus Sheffield United. 7th at home to 1st as West Brom. They keep the unbeaten run going, but it is draws galore. They have drawn 10 of their 18 matches this season in the EFL Championship. 2 successive away draws against Sunderland and Preston. And there were times against Preston where they couldn't get out. They found it really hard to control the game. They were getting penned in. In the end, we'll be fairly happy to have got away with a point there. It is now 5 draws in the last 6 matches. A variation of scorelines in them. But Sheffield United just keep on rolling. Even though it was 10 apiece for the second half, they found a way to win late on against Sunderland. And what a moment for Tom Davies as well. And they don't concede many goals, do they? Along with Burnley, the only side in single figures this year. And I think based on that, and particularly given West Brom struggles in front of goal at times, I have to go for Sheffield United to edge it. I know a lot of people will sit on the fence in this one. A 0-0 or 1-0 wouldn't surprise anybody. I'm going to go for Sheffield United to find a way again and win 1-0 at the Hawthorns to stay top on Sunday afternoon. So with that out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for this weekend. A big match week with some huge games at the top and bottom, and none more so than the first and last game. I've gone for Burnley to pit Borough by 1-0 and Sheffield United to pit West Brom by the same score. And both of those to stay in the top 2 as a result. I've gone for Leeds United and Sunderland to keep the pressure on, as well as my beloved Luton Town to move away from a little bit of relegation trouble. And no doubt my bold call of the weekend is Hull City to have a manager in place and potentially beat Blackburn Rovers. Let me know if you agree or disagree with those though. Give me your score predictions in the comments, and if you beat or match my overall score this match week, you will get a shout out on Sunday night when we return to look ahead to a full midweek fixture list from sunny Yorkshire. That will be match week 20, so come and join us late on Sunday evening for that. In the meantime, though, thank you very much for watching this one. If you enjoyed it, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe and turn that notification bell on to stay up to date with everything. I can't promise there will be instant manager specials depending on what day they're announced during the next week or 2. But thank you very much for watching, for joining me as always, and I'll see you again on Sunday to look ahead to match week 20.